Hello and welcome. My name is Robert Annis, and today I'm going to be teaching you a couple of key principles about the Agile methodology. A lot of Agile is very easy to understand. It seems quite logical to us, but there are a couple of areas that need a little bit more focus because they can seem a little bit strange. I'm going to use an analogy today and draw that out for you to help you understand those two key principles. The first area we'll focus on is feedback. Feedback is a very important part of Agile, particularly in Scrum methodology. Feedback is not used in all processes, but in Scrum we use it constantly to make sure we are doing the right thing, to make sure that our customers are giving us feedback, to make sure we're going in the right direction. Related to that is the realization that having that feedback does push us in the right direction. Another way to look at it is to think if we don't get that feedback, there is the risk that we're going in the wrong direction. Often this is shown in contracts and projects, in that we deliver at the end and it doesn't quite succeed, so we may have to add an item at the end to try and meet the true requirement. So the analogy I'm going to use for this is completely unwork related. I like to do that because if it's related to work, we tend to have different experiences and that clouds our judgment. So I have to take a step back into something completely different. So the analogy I'm going to use today will be a little bit unusual, but it should help. So the analogy I'll use is that of a shark hunting for its prey. As I said, it's an unusual one, but it does help. So a key understanding here is to think how exactly sharks hunt. So sharks hunt using their sense of smell. So if a shark is at this point and it senses that its prey is somewhere over here, it will realize it needs to get to there to eat its prey. So the logical path, obviously, is a direct line. So the shark, we would think, would travel in this direction and finally make it to its prey. However, that actually is not very effective. The shark realizes that it doesn't know exactly where it is. Its nostrils are saying, I know roughly it's in that direction, but I don't know exactly where. So the shark, realizing that, hunts in a slightly different manner. It will actually swim slightly away from the bearing that it believes the target is at. So it will actually swim like this. As it gets further away, it will recognize that it is not swimming towards the target. It's getting feedback from its nostrils to its brain saying, actually, the smell is getting fainter. So at that point, the shark will then change direction and swim back this way. At this point, we can say that the shark is getting a stronger smell. So it's getting stronger and stronger until it passes that line again, at which point it's getting fainter. The shark readjusts based upon that information, back to stronger, and keeps doing this in ever smaller loops until it reaches its target. What is actually happening here is really quite interesting. The shark is realizing that it doesn't know exactly where the target is, so it uses a feedback loop. It comes to this point here, realizing that it's getting weaker direction to the smell, it then changes direction here. The same step happens here, and here, and here. This maps very nicely to Agile. If we think of these feedback points as being the same points in Agile when we do a demo, and we show off the work that we've done, we show that to our client. The feedback there is really quite critical. If we were to think if we didn't do this feedback loop, so let's go with the second principle we talked about, which is we truly don't know where we're going, but we think we do. In this model, we're accepting that we don't know exactly where the target is. So we use that feedback loop to get there in the most efficient way possible. What we often find ourselves doing is saying, I know exactly where I'm going. So we say, that's where I'm going. And then we head for that. The problem is, this is truly where you're trying to get to. But because you've taken that snapshot, that immediate snapshot at the beginning and said, I know what I'm going to do, and not had these feedback loop points, you actually go in the wrong direction, and you may not deliver exactly what is needed. Additionally, what we tend to find is that this model, using feedback loops, although at first it may seem a little bit odd, is actually the most efficient way to get there. We tend to find we are cutting out waste, because we are finding bits that we don't need to do. In this model, we tend to do more work than is necessary. So this is truly the most efficient way Using feedback loops and accepting we don't truly know exactly where our target is, this is the most efficient way to deliver a project or indeed a contract to the client when they don't truly know the end state, which, if we're honest, is the vast majority of situations we find ourselves in. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you.